Your issues are like a pot of boiling water. And if you just keep pushing them down and pushing them down under the lid, what's gonna happen eventually? It's gonna explode. Don't make the mistakes that I did. I don't think I've had even a full ounce of water today, but it's fine. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lacey Jane. If you are new here, welcome to the dark side. If you're returning, welcome back. I really wanted to hop on here and share with you guys my first therapy experience, and I wanted to be more open about my mental health struggles since the last video that I posted about my depression and my journey through depression and all of these different factors that have led up to here and how I cope with my everyday life. I also wanted to talk about therapy because I think that literally everyone can benefit from therapy. Everyone can benefit from talking to someone. And even if therapy is not something that you could ever really see yourself doing, it's definitely worth a try and worth giving it a shot. So the first time that I saw a therapist, I was 24. I was living in my own apartment. I had a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. And this was at a point in my life when my depression was just very, very, very intense for me. Like, it affected the way that I went to work. It affected the way I lived my life. I was in a really, really bad pit. And this was when I was spending most of my time alone. All of my time I probably spent like on the weekends after work, I spent in bed. I was really just in a dark place, and I started to seek out therapy just because I was at a point where I was in such a dark place that I started to fear being alone. I started to fear being in my apartment alone because I started to have just these nagging suicidal thoughts, and something within me was like, Lacey, you are recognizing this. Maybe it was my intuition, maybe it was a guide, an angel, something like that just told me, you know, Lacey, you have to actually try to reach out for help, because I didn't have anyone to talk to. You know, I had friends, but it feels so awkward being that friend that's like, yo, I have depression, I'm really sad right now all the time. So I knew that I needed to seek out therapy because I knew that I needed an outlet to talk to someone about the thoughts that were going through in my mind. And not only that, I knew that if I was afraid to be alone with myself, that's a huge red flag that I need to do something about it. And regardless of, you know, if I was deciding to go on medication or not or anything like that, therapy was just the first step forward. And so I started researching and looking up like therapists in the area, and I was able to find one at the time that accepted me without having health insurance, because that was another reason why I had prolonged like putting off therapy for so long, is because I didn't have health insurance. And so my thought process, being, you know, ignorant of anything that had to do with therapy, was that they wouldn't accept me if I didn't have health insurance. And I'm here to tell you guys right now, there is help available literally anywhere. Before I went into therapy, I had to fill out a questionnaire as to why I was seeking out therapy, why I wanted to talk to someone. And it was basically, you know, some questions along the lines of, do I struggle with depression? Do I have suicidal thoughts? Have I ever harmed myself? And this is the part that I really need to stress that you guys should learn from, because I don't want you to make my mistake. I remember filling out that questionnaire and saying that I was struggling with this feeling of emptiness, this feeling of numbness, this feeling like my life was just routine and I didn't have a purpose, and basically I just felt empty. And so I wrote that in the questionnaire, but I didn't really write much or expand much on my thoughts of suicide, depression, or self-harm. So when I got to the therapist, when I had that first meeting, you know, she asked me, she said, you know, I see that you wrote that you were really empty or you were really numb. Do you want to expand on that a little bit? And this is where it began. I was like, no, I don't want to expand upon that. Like, thinking back now, looking back at it from where I am now, that was absolutely ridiculous. For one, that I didn't want to expand upon why I felt the way I did, why I was seeking out therapy, because the whole point of therapy is to sit down and talk to someone, you know, to sit down and have a conversation and be open. Going into your first therapy appointment, it is going to be very, very hard, especially if it's new for you. If you were like me, are like me, someone who's closed off to their feelings, someone who's closed off to expressing themselves, you know, it's hard to open up. It's hard to be vulnerable that first time. And I was able to open up more, but here's the next part. I decided to be open and honest in therapy with the parts of me that I wanted to share. So I opened up about, my relationship that I had been struggling with healing from. And I decided to open up about, some other issues surrounding that, but I decided to be closed off about the issues that I have with my parents. And I decided to be closed off with an eating disorder, and I decided not to tell her, well, I lied really about having suicidal thoughts and hurting myself. I lied about all of these things because I only wanted to be open with part of me. I only wanted to share part of my story. And that was the biggest mistake I could have made, is that I decided I'm gonna be a little bit open, and then I'm gonna shut off all the real hard parts. And I think back to this now, and I can clearly see, like, this was my ego that was telling me, Lacey, it's okay to be open about this, but it's not okay to be open about this. Because that was the easy part, getting through a relationship. I'm like, yeah, that's easy. But sharing my story about how much I hate the way I look when I look in a mirror, or how much I feel so alone in this world, or how much sometimes I don't even want to be alive. I decided to share the easy parts, but I didn't want to dig deep and really be vulnerable and reveal the parts of me that I don't usually reveal to people, the parts of me that I keep hidden for a reason. I can look back at this now and man, I really, I'm so disappointed that I decided to just be one person. I decided to put on another mask for my therapist. And instead of taking off all these masks, I decided I'm gonna be this person when I go to therapy. And the reason I wanna share that is because when you go to therapy, for one, it's such a release. When you get to sit down and release all of these thoughts and feelings that are in your mind, you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable. And being vulnerable is so important in this world, because it's like you're subconsciously telling yourself that, you know what, it's okay for me to be human. It's okay for me to feel. It's okay for me to talk about what's bothering me. It's okay for me to go through the motions so that I can heal this part of myself. And when you decide not to share that, and not to be vulnerable, and not to be open, you shut yourself off from so much healing. And I think that healing is such a process and such a journey, but when you have those issues, your issues are like a pot of boiling water. And if you just keep pushing them down and pushing them down under the lid, what's gonna happen eventually? Eventually, it's gonna explode. And because I didn't address them then, when they were coming up within me then, I had to address them later. And it just got worse, and it just got worse, and there was more heat and more pressure, and eventually later I did explode. And later I did have just so much of just a crisis within myself, because I refused to just address it the first time. I refused. Like, the universe was telling me at that time, Lacey, you need to address these issues. You need to, get to the root of why you feel this way, instead of putting them off until later. And really, I think that therapy is so beneficial, because when you're talking to a therapist, it's so different than when you're talking to one of your friends. Sometimes we don't want to hear the advice that our friends give us, and a therapist is just such a great, a third-party option that's not going to judge you, and that could also give you a new perspective or a new outlook. What I want to say is that if you are feeling like there's no solution, or there's no one that can help you, or maybe you don't have money or insurance or anything like that, still do the research. Look for a therapist near you. Look for a therapist online. I mean, there are options like BetterHelp and whatnot that you can pay monthly. You can pay a fee, and they're always there at the tip of your fingertips. And if not, you can do like I did and look up therapists that'll accept you without having health insurance, or therapists that'll accept you on a sliding scale. And even if you can't even go that far, if you can just pick up the phone and call a therapist, I promise you, if they can't help you, they know someone that can. They're gonna lead you in the right direction, because nobody's gonna pick up the phone when you say that you need help and you wanna talk to someone. They're not gonna just lead you astray. They're not gonna just put the phone back down and say, sorry, can't help you. I just want to stress that your mental health is so important, and talking to people is so important, and being vulnerable is so incredibly important. And if there is anything that you do get from this, it's just to, for one, don't make the mistakes that I did. Be vulnerable, be open, allow yourself to be open and share your story with people, because when you share your story and you be open and you're vulnerable, you're embracing your authentic self. And when you embrace your authentic self, you're in alignment. And if there is anything that you deserve in this world, it's to share your story and to be confident and comfortable in who you are and what led you here. And I really think that if you are thinking about going to therapy, or if you have any misconceptions about it, just give it a shot. Just give it a try, because regardless, there's no downside to talking to someone, and there's no downside to sharing your problems or your issues or getting some new insight. So this was just a short, sweet little message. I didn't really have anything written down or planned for this video, but I hope that you guys got something from it, because it came from my heart, and sharing my story hopefully will save a life. If you enjoyed hearing me speak, if you resonated with anything that I said, if you have an experience with therapy that you want to share with us, comment below. Like this video and subscribe to my channel. I post videos every week. Hopefully. My life is kind of chaotic sometimes, but I mean, whose isn't these days? Like, whatever. Anyways, I hope that you guys have a great day. I will see you guys again very, very soon. Thank you. I love you. Bye. I'll see you next week.